In the year of the elephant, a child was born into a tribe whose honor had just been confirmed by divine intervention. His name was Mohammed. What no one in Makkah yet knew was that this child carried within him the answer to a dua Ibrahim had made thousands of years before. That answer was waiting in a cave on a mountain called Hira. But before you see what happened inside it, you need to know who walked in. As was the custom of noble families in Makkah, the infant Mohammed was sent into the desert to be nursed, away from the city's crowded air and its epidemics. His foster mother was Halima, of the tribe of Banu Sa'd. In the desert, he would breathe clean air and learn the purest, most eloquent Arabic spoken anywhere in the peninsula. It was during these years, while shepherding lambs with his foster brother, that something happened which the earliest biographers recorded with care, and which we narrate here with the same care. A moment of purification, a preparation for a life that would carry a weight no other child would carry. At 6 years old, his mother Amina took him to Yathrib to visit his maternal family. On the journey home, she fell ill and died, and was buried at a place called Al-Abwa. The boy who would one day be entrusted with guiding all of humanity was now, at 6, without either parent. His grandfather Abd al-Muttalib, the same man who had stood before Abraha's army and entrusted the Kaaba to its lord, took him in. When Abd al-Muttalib himself passed only 2 years later, the boy passed into the care of his uncle, Abu Talib, who would protect him for decades. By the time he was 9, he had lost his father before birth, his mother at 6, and his grandfather at 8. He was raised not by one stable household, but by a succession of people who loved him and were taken from him. Loss, again and again, before he was old enough to understand what loss was. When he was around 9 years old, Abu Talib took him on a trading caravan north, toward Syria. At a stop in Basra, a Christian monk named Hira watched the boy and noticed things the rest of the caravan had not. A cloud that seemed to shade him as he walked. The way it was said that trees and stones leaned toward him as he passed. Bahira invited the travelers to eat, and while they did, he examined the boy and found a mark between his shoulders, the mark his own scriptures had told him to look for. He told Abu Talib plainly, "Take him home quickly, and be careful of the Jews. If they recognize what I have recognized, they may not mean him well." A Christian monk, reading his own scripture, looking at a 9-year-old boy from Makkah, and recognizing something the boy's own family did not yet understand. This was not the last time someone from the people of the book would recognize him before his own people did. Arabia in this period had no central law. Tribal honor and tribal vendetta were the only justice that existed, and roughly 20 years after the year of the elephant, that system broke down publicly in what came to be called the Fijar War, the War of the Wicked, named for its violation of the sacred truce months. Mohammed was 20 years old. His uncles took him to the field. He did not fight. By his own later account, his role was to gather the arrows the enemy had fired and hand them back to his uncles to use again. He stood at the edge of exactly the kind of senseless, sacred month-breaking bloodshed that defined his world, close enough to see it, never raising a weapon himself. What he took from that field was not a taste for war. It was a conviction that tribe against tribe, honor avenged with more blood, could not be what the world was meant to be. Not long after, a merchant from Yemen, of the tribe of Zubayd, sold goods in Makkah to a powerful man named Alaz ibn Wa'il, who simply refused to pay. With no tribal protection in the city, the merchant climbed Mount Abu Qubays and recited his grievance to anyone who would listen. Several clans answered. They gathered at the house of Abdullah ibn Jaddan, dipped their hands in scented water, and swore an oath. They would stand with the wronged, whoever they were, whatever tribe they came from, until justice was restored. They called it Hilf al-Fudul, the alliance of the virtuous. Mohammed was present. Years later, as a prophet, he did not distance himself from that pre-Islamic oath. According to the accounts preserved of his own words, he said he would not trade that alliance away even for red camels, the most valuable currency his people knew. A pact to protect the oppressed regardless of blood or tribe, sworn before a single verse of the Quran existed. The principle, it turns out, did not need to be invented. It needed to be completed. By his mid-20s, Muhammad had built a reputation that traveled faster than any caravan. People called him Al-Amin, the Trustworthy, and Al-Sadiq, the Truthful. A woman named Khadijah bint Khuwaylid, the wealthiest and most respected merchant in Makkah, hired him to lead a trading caravan to Syria on her behalf. Her servant Maysara traveled with him and returned with reports that unsettled and intrigued her in equal measure. Unusual occurrences on the road, and a man whose conduct matched nothing she had seen in the merchant class of Makkah. Khadijah was 40, he was 25. She had been married before, widowed, and had turned away proposals from the wealthiest men of the Quraysh. She sent for him herself and said to him directly, "O cousin, I like you because of your relationship to me, your high reputation among your people, your honesty, your good manners, and your truthfulness." He had no wealth of his own to offer her. She did not need him to. She chose character over capital in a city where capital decided almost everything else. He never married another woman while she lived, and long after her death he would say, "God has never given me a better wife than Khadijah." Around the time he was 35, the Kaaba itself needed rebuilding. Its walls had grown low, and its treasury had been robbed. The Quraysh agreed to reconstruct it. What they could not agree on was who would have the honor of restoring the black stone to its place. This was not a small matter of pride. Whichever clan placed the stone effectively held the prestige of the Kaaba itself, and with it, a measure of the religious standing that anchored Makkah's entire commercial life. The pilgrimages, the trade, the wealth that flowed through the city precisely because of what the Kaaba represented. The dispute grew dangerous enough that two clans, Banu Abd al-Dar and Banu Adi, filled a bowl with blood, dipped their hands in it, and swore to fight to the death over the privilege. Makkah stood on the edge of a war over a stone, and over everything that stone's placement would mean for whoever controlled it. An elder proposed a way out. Whoever next walked through the gate would decide. That person was Muhammad. The clans did not protest. They said simply, "This is Al-Amin, we are satisfied." He asked for a cloak. He placed the black stone at its center and asked a leader from every contending clan to take hold of an edge and lift together. When the cloak reached the proper height, he alone set the stone into the wall with his own hands. No tribe lost honor. No blood was spilled. No one's claim to prestige was diminished, and no one's was elevated above the rest. He was 35 years old, with no formal authority, no army, no office, and an entire city, on the brink of tearing itself apart over who would hold the greater honor, had just unanimously agreed to do whatever he decided. This is the man Makkah trusted completely, years before a single word of revelation ever reached him. What happened next would test that trust in a way no arbitration ever could. As he approached 40, something in him changed. He had always avoided the idle feasts and gatherings of his people. Now he began to crave something more, solitude itself. The sources describe a man who, by this point, loved nothing better than to be alone. From around the age of 37, he began to feel, in his own words later recorded, as though a window had opened onto a world beyond the one he could see. When he walked alone through the ravines outside Makkah, away from any house or witness, he reported that the very stones and trees along his path would greet him. "Peace be upon you, O messenger of Allah." He would turn, searching, and find nothing but rock and branch. Each year during the month of Ramadan, he withdrew to a cave on the mountain known as Hira, a practice some of the Quraysh called tahanath, a private devotion, not yet anything anyone considered remarkable. He would stay for days, return home for provisions, then go back. And in his sleep, true visions began. Visions so vivid and so precisely fulfilled that they seemed, in his own description, as clear as the breaking of dawn. Something was approaching. He did not yet have a name for it. In the month of Ramadan, in the year 610, alone in the cave of Hira, something came to him that no retreat before had prepared him for. A presence pressed a coverlet against him and said one word, "Iqra, read." "I do not read," he answered. The presence pressed harder, hard enough, he said later, that he thought it was death itself, then released him and repeated the command. "I do not read," he said again. A third time the pressure came, and this time he asked instead, "What shall I read?" Then came the words, "Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot, Read, for your Lord is most generous, who taught by the pen taught man what he did not know. 5 verses, the opening of Surat Al-Alaq. Consider what had just happened and to whom. The Hijaz at this time held, by careful primary source count, perhaps 24 literate people in total. 17 among the Quraysh and the people of Yathrib, 11 more among the Aus and Khazraj. Muhammad himself could not read or write. And the first word given to him, the first word of a message that would reshape the world, was, read. Not a command to conquer, not a command to rule, a command to know. He left the cave, and somewhere on the slope a voice called from the sky, "O Muhammad, you are the messenger of Allah, and I am Jibril." He looked up and saw a figure with feet set on the horizon itself, and wherever he turned his face, the figure was there, unmoving, unmissable. He stood frozen long enough that Khadijah, growing worried, sent people out searching as far as Makkah and back without finding him. When the vision finally released him, he went straight to her, trembling, and said only, "Cover me, cover me." She wrapped him in her own garments and sat with him until the shaking passed. When he told her he feared he had lost his mind, she did not flinch. "By Allah, no," she said. "Allah will never disgrace you. You are truthful, you carry the burdens of others, you are generous to your guests, and you help those in distress." Notice exactly what she did. She did not ask him to prove the vision was real. She held up the character she had watched for 15 years of marriage and reasoned from it. A man like this could not be deceived by evil, because evil does not produce a man like this. And then, in a detail the historians preserved with care, she tested it once more. She asked him to sit close while she removed her veil, and when the presence he described then withdrew rather than remain in the room, she told him, "Rejoice, this is an angel, not a devil, for a devil would show no such respect." Khadijah took him to her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal, an old man, blind by now, who had long ago left idolatry behind for Christianity, and who could read the gospel in its original Hebrew. He listened to the account in full. "Holy, holy," Waraka said, "this is the same great Namus that came to Musa. You are the prophet of this people." And then, almost gently, he added the warning no one wants to give someone they have just embraced. "You will be called a liar. You will be driven out. You will be fought. I only wish I were young enough to stand beside you when it happens." A Christian scholar, fluent in the gospel, was the first outside voice to recognize what had happened in the cave, and the first to warn, accurately, of everything that would follow. And then, after 5 verses, nothing. The voice that had filled the cave did not return. Sources differ on how long the silence lasted. Some say a matter of days, others weeks. The historian Ibn Ishaq says as long as 3 years. What none of them differ on is what it did to him. He fell into grief so heavy that later accounts describe him repeatedly walking to the mountain crags where it had happened, searching, hoping, finding nothing. He feared he had been forsaken. Down in Makkah, those who disbelieved him noticed his silence too and began to say it aloud, "Muhammad's Lord has abandoned him." During this same silence, Waraka, the one man outside his household who had told him plainly what he was, died. The cave had spoken once and gone quiet. His one outside witness was gone, and nothing in his own life had prepared him for what to do with a God who would not speak again. Then, walking once more, he heard the voice from the sky again and looked up to see the same figure from Hira, this time seated on a throne suspended between heaven and earth. Terror took him exactly as it had the first time. He ran home crying, "Cover me, cover me." And this time the revelation gave him not a private experience but an instruction. "O you wrapped in your cloak, arise and warn, and glorify your Lord, and purify yourself, and keep away from idols." The first message had been Iqra, read, know, understand for yourself. The second was different in kind, arise and warn others. The revelation that followed did not stop again. From this point it came, as the sources put it, one after another. A private encounter with the unseen had just become a public mission. He did not yet know how public. He did not begin with a crowd. He began with 4 people, and the order in which they came told its own story before a single sermon was given. Khadijah, the wealthiest, most respected woman in Makkah, believed first without hesitation because she already knew his character. Ali, his cousin, raised in his own household, only around 10 years old, believed next, the first male to pray at his side. Zayd ibn Haritha, a man who had once been captured as a boy, sold into slavery, given to Khadijah, then freed and taken in by Muhammad as his own, believed. And Abu Bakr, a respected merchant but not an aristocrat in Khadijah's class, believed instantly and did not stay quiet about it. Within days, he had brought 5 more men to the faith: Uthman ibn Affan, Az-Zubair ibn al-Awwam, Abdur Rahman ibn Auf, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and Talha ibn Ubaydillah, men whose names would shape the next century of history. A noblewoman, a child, a freed slave, a merchant who went straight to his friends. Before a single public word had been spoken, the message had already crossed every line Makkah used to separate one person's worth from another's. If you want to see exactly who answered this call first, and what each of them risked by saying yes, that is reason enough to subscribe before the next chapter. For close to 3 years, this stayed quiet. Believers met in secret, often at the house of a young man named Al-Arqam. To most of Makkah, Muhammad was still simply a son of Banu Abd al-Muttalib who had started talking about the heavens, a curiosity, not a threat. That was about to end. A command was coming that would take him to the top of a hill called Safa, in full view of the city, to say out loud what had until now only been whispered in a small house. And the man who would curse him first in public for saying it would be his own uncle. The secret was almost out. Next time, the hill of Safa, and the morning everything Makkah thought it knew about this family changed.